Welcome back to the program. It's a brand new show here on AM 650, You and the Law. I'm Sterling Fox, joined in studio by Joe Murphy and Scott Stanley from the law firm Murphy Battista LLP here in Vancouver. Gentlemen, before the break, we were talking, you were trying to give us some good advice on how to go about hiring a lawyer. You're experts in the field of personal injury, an area in which people really ought to at least have some legal advice, if not full-time legal representation, depending on the merits of the case. But everyone, your advice would be, should at least have a chat with a lawyer to find out where you stand and how to put your best foot forward. That's reasonable, right, Scott?
Yeah, that's exactly what we think people should do.
Okay, it's also important to know, and this is, Joe, this is kind of, I don't know whether it's nasty or insidious or what the deal is, but there are some lawyers in British Columbia who literally work both sides of the fence in personal injury law. They represent ICBC in some occasions and personal or individuals and others. How do you square that circle? It seems like a rather blatant conflict of interest. How do they conduct themselves?
Well, Sterling, it's not unusual. ICBC was established in 1972 to have lawyers do plaintiffs' work and do ICBC defense work. The problem, in my mind, arose a few years ago when ICBC said to these firms which do ICBC defense work is, we insist that you sign this contract, and this contract says that you may do cases against us, but you'll always be nice to us. And I'll explain what that means.
Please do.
If I have a client who has a $2 million claim, and there's only $1 million in insurance available, I will say to ICBC on day one, pay up or else. Mm-hmm. And the or else is pay up or else you will pay us $2 million at the end of this case, because your insured will say, what have you done to me? Mm-hmm. If I had signed this ICBC defense agreement, I couldn't say to them, pay up or else, because that's a no-no according to the agreement. And
you're not allowed to disclose that?
With an insurance company, the only thing that prompts them to pay early is a financial advantage in doing it. And that's why pay up or else should result in the $1 million in that scenario I talked about, right, being paid soon. Whereas if you don't say that, they will keep that $1 million in their pocket for as long as they can, because it's invested in earning them a return.
And back to the advice you've been giving us, Scott, in terms of helpful hints in looking for a lawyer. Clearly, one of the questions you want to ask a lawyer if you're going for a personal injury situation and looking for legal advice is, do you also work for ICBC? That's a fair question, isn't it?
It should be the first question.
But a lawyer owes a client a duty of candor. And even if the question's not asked, the lawyer should tell them that.
Okay.
Even if the question's not asked, my personal view is that the lawyer should have to disclose that. The other thing is, you made reference to us as experts. I mean, we can't call ourselves experts. We can assert that we're very, very good at this area of law, but we can't call ourselves experts. And that's for the clients to determine whether or not we're good or bad. Or
well, I'm the outsider in this case.
Yeah. The medical profession has certified experts.
Okay.
The legal profession doesn't allow you to say to people, I'm an expert.
Oh, right. Okay.
It allows you to say, I specialize in this area of practice.
Because you use experts in the course of doing your business, don't you?
Lots.
Yeah. And I would think in personal injury law, Joe, based on your years of experience, you probably used hundreds of experts over the 30 years you've been at it.
Yes. Well, I wouldn't say hundreds. I'd probably say 100 or 200. And over time, Sterling, we've come to know who the best experts are in these areas. And we're able to get our clients in to see them for treatment recommendations. And at the end of the day, we're able to get an opinion from them that's solid, it's candid, it's objective, and the case will either be settled or it'll go to trial on those opinions.
Okay.
So we're looking for really good experts, not experts that are going to give us good reports.
Right. And well, there's a whole class of professional witnesses out there.
Yes.
You see it in the American system more so than in ours because there are more of them, but they populate our system too, don't they?
There are people like that in our system.
Interesting. Okay. Now, Scott, back to this whole business of hiring a lawyer and getting good preliminary legal advice in order to take a case against ICBC or just make a claim for some personal injury. Let's talk about some of the myths that exist around claims in ICBC. And one of the things you mentioned first off, that any lawyer should advise a person with a potential ICBC claim, is document everything, write everything down, correct?
Well, different lawyers have different views about whether or not a client should keep a journal of everything. My view is that they shouldn't. And I'm probably in the minority when it comes to that. Most lawyers would tell you that you should keep a journal. I say no, because it's either something that you keep, and then if you turn it over to ICBC, and people are not perfect, and when they're keeping these journals, I had neck pain this day, shoulder pain this day, and if they forget to put something down, then ICBC is going to say, well, if you didn't put it down and you took the trouble to write it, then it didn't exist. It's just more information. In my view, these journals are actually more information that the ICBC and the defense can use against a client.
Do you have to share the information with ICBC? If you, for example, you decide to document everything that happens from the moment that guy hit you in the rear end, then you take that to court, then ICBC can take your own notes and use them against you.
And do it very, very well. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
I mean, if the clients kept these notes before they hire a lawyer, they have to be turned over to ICBC. If I go and tell the client, you can keep some notes for my purposes so that we can work together as your lawyer, don't have to produce those. But what's the point of keeping these notes unless you're going to want to use them at trial? I'm not a big fan of clients keeping journals.
Let the lawyer do that.
That's the lawyer's job.
Interesting stuff. Okay, what about this whole business of private eyes? ICBC, Joe, hiring private investigators, trying to find people with the neck brace, climbing up the ladder and cleaning out the eavesdrops. You know the stories.
Oh, yes.
Do they do that as frequently as we imagine them to?
I think it's probably more frequent than you think.
Really?
And
okay.
in cases, substantial sums of money are paid to follow people because the adjuster is skeptical or suspicious, not because this person has done anything that should invite that suspicion. So I explain to people, once you hire us, and that's usually a bit of a red flag for the insurance companies, they don't like us, which I take as a compliment at the job we're doing.
Right.
But they will hire an investigator, and they will talk to their neighbors, and they will follow them, they will videotape them. And oftentimes the videotape just shows the client doing what they've said they can do.
Right.
So it's amazing sometimes the amount of money an adjuster will spend on surveillance when I look at it and say, this is a total waste. Having said that, there are a few cases where they catch people exaggerating things.
Yes.
And those people should be caught if that's what they're doing, and they should be dealt with accordingly.
But you're saying that ICBC is considerably more aggressive in that area than most of us imagine.
I think they are. Again, it's based on the insurance company skepticism that people make claims must be liars, cheats, and thieves.
So, and again, Scott, you've worked for those guys in the past. If you were approaching the insurance company with a claim based on an accident, then you must be trying to take us for a ride.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good way for an insurance company to find out whether or not the person's being honest or not.
Yeah.
And whenever I had access to surveillance, I was always surprised at how mundane it is. It's like, watching people buy laundry, just really mundane stuff. It's the most boring stuff you can watch. But, I think the insurance companies do it just to double check. I think they're doing it for that as much as they are trying to catch liars, cheats, and thieves. Mm-hmm. I think if they're going to write a big check, they want to have some assurance that this person is legitimate.
What about work? If you're banged up in a car accident and you go back to work, perhaps before you even should because you're tough and you need work to distract you from all this other aggravation suddenly in your life, is that a good thing?
People miss work. It's the thing that drives them crazy, and that's the thing that brings on the anger. Mm-hmm. And so when people can reasonably return to work, they ought to do that. And that's certainly something we encourage them to do. But it has to be something that's medically supported and justified. And it's not something they should just be doing on their own. It has to be supervised. It has to be gradual, but you definitely want to get people back to work as quick as you can.
And also that would, I would assume, also go hand in glove with taking time off on a vacation. If you had planned to go to Cuba in April and you got hit by in a car accident, but you can get on the plane should you go.
We tell people, people say they want their life back. We listen to them and we say, well, get your life back. People worry about what ICBC is going to think or what the defense is going to think. And I always tell them they're not going to think much of you anyways. They rarely do. You go live your life. You do the things, try to get back to as many of the things that you'd like to do, you want to do, and let me worry about that. Let your lawyer worry about that. That's our job. Your job should be focused on getting better. If you like fly fishing, you get back, you do your fly fishing. You like to ski, you try skiing. Mm-hmm. Let us worry about that. And, they might have private investigators on you and filming all this stuff, which is fine. Do the things you normally do, but just remember to tell us the things that you're doing. Don't forget.
The client creates a huge problem if they go fly fishing and then later said, no, I couldn't do that.
Oh, boy.
That's a big problem.
Right. So
That's
every step of the
problem.
way, if you're using a lawyer, then you need to keep connected with that individual and keep current with your lawyer.
I think
right?
it's more important that the person recovering from an accident says to their doctor or therapist, I'd like to go back to work. Is that okay?
Right.
Or I've planned this family vacation. Can I and should I still go? That's who they should be checking with. Mm-hmm. We need to know what's going on, but in terms of advice about going back to work or doing things, that's really medical advice. Our advice generally is do as much as you can, as quickly as you can, and we will then find out the impact of the injury.
Exactly.
But it's ironic, if someone goes back to work early, an insurance company will sometimes say that means they couldn't be hurting as much as they say because they would never have gone back that soon. Or if they go back later, they say, well, they should have gone back sooner. So it's sort of lose-lose in the insurance company's eyes. But we can deal with that. We just need to know what's going on, and we need a person, and everybody has this normal motivation to get back to normal.
Sure. Just before we take a break here, Scott, the doctor, and you've mentioned the doctor, in terms of keeping documentation about your condition and so on, better the doctor and the lawyer should do it than you do it. But what happens in a case of you get a doctor and you just don't feel this fellow or this woman is on your side? They're not being as sympathetic or supportive as you expected them to be. I was just bashed up in a car accident. Doc, come on, a little sympathy here. Should you change doctors?
Yep. If you're not comfortable, the person should change doctors. I mean, the reality of it is a lot of young people, especially in the Lower Mainland. I mean, we've got clients all over the province.
Sure.
And young people that don't have a relationship with their doctor, they don't have the history of trust between themselves and their doctor. Used to be 10 years ago, you'd have someone that had been the family doctor for 10, 15 years. Yeah. And when a person went in and said, I can't work, the doctor knew that they worked through many, many, bad experiences before, and they gave them a little bit easier time. But certainly if the doctor's not servicing your needs, you're free to find another doctor.
Interesting. And ICBC wouldn't hold that against you then, Joe?
Oh, they'll argue you're doctor shopping. But as Scott said, the reality is most people don't have a regular family doctor.
Right.
They go to a walk-in clinic.
Yeah.
Our advice to them, if you go to the walk-in clinic, see the same doctor each time. So there's some continuity.
Sure.
But if there isn't a connection, and some doctors just don't buy an injury, they're skeptical, then you've got to find another doctor. And it'll be another doctor at a walk-in clinic because there just aren't good family doctors available who take new patients.
Some doctors just don't want to deal with ICBC cases.
Yeah, and by the sounds of what I'm learning in the course of this conversation, I might be a little reluctant myself down the road. You're listening to You and the Law here on AM 650. I'm Sterling Fox, joined in studio by Joe Murphy and Scott Stanley from Murphy Battista LLP here in Vancouver. Lots more still ahead. Stay with us.